So we're moving into a new generation of electric vehicles that will charge closer to the 150 kilowatt maximum, but is that all you need to consider for DC fast charging, or are there other aspects that will make a difference to your journey time? That's what we're going to look at in today's video, so let's dive in. So welcome to another Coffee and Kilowatts. This one looking at how important the charge profile of your EV is to fast charging and trip time. So we've talked a lot about DC fast charging maximums in the past, and especially in context of the next generation of non-Tesla EVs, at least, coming out with the Nissan Ariya, the Volkswagen ID.4 and the Ford Mustang Mach-E, all in that 125 to 150 kilowatt maximum DC fast charge territory. But there's other aspects here, and as we start to learn more about the charge profile and the charge curves of these vehicles, we're starting to see different approaches from the manufacturers that might make a difference to your trip time depending on how you like to travel. So question today is how much does it matter that you have a certain type of charge curve, and what would you prefer for your particular type of travel and electric vehicle that would deliver it? So let's dive in, grab a coffee, and we'll look at charge profiles and DC fast charging. Cheers. When we talk about a charge profile or a charge curve on a DC fast charger, we're seeing how long the EV will take to get to its maximum power rate. But there's a second part of the story, which is, how the charge curve holds that power. So will it hold the maximum rate that you hear about so much from, a very low state of charge to a very high state of charge, or does it begin to taper off? So in the Bolt EV, we've seen some, as well as criticism about the 55 kilowatt fast charge rate maximum, we've also seen a criticism that it tapers off at the 50-55% mark, and then again at the 67% mark. And in previous model years before the 2020, those were step downs in power. So you hit the 50 to 55 kilowatts in the early half of the battery, but then at 50-55% it would drop down to a much lower rate. It wouldn't taper away, so you're suddenly losing a lot of power in one go. 2020 Bolt EV rectified that to some extent. It adopted more of a Tesla style taper, so you'll hit that maximum, but then around 50% it'll start to die away. But that's the same for all these three cars that we're looking at now. They will have different tapers. They all seem to have a taper rather than a step down, which is good. But what state of charge they taper and how aggressively that taper occurs is what most people will want to look at. So the reason for addressing this topic today, I caught an interview with the chief engineer of the Nissan Ariya, Hikaru Nakajima. It was actually pretty old, back in September it was done, but in a few different little tidbits that he released about the car, he also mentioned that the charge rate, the maximum charge rate of 130 kilowatts, would be held up to 70% of state of charge. So although that might sound fairly innocuous, nothing new, with we knew it would go up to around that 130 kilowatt max, the notable part there is that it goes up to 70% state of charge if what he says is going to be accurate in the final delivered version, which we won't know until probably the second half of 2021 here. But it's very interesting because it raises that question of charge curves and charge profiles, how much that matters to your overall trip time when you go on a longer trip. I thought it would be interesting to compare what we know about the Ford Mustang Mach-E from the few early charge sessions we've seen some people put up online, and also the Volkswagen ID.4, which, although it certainly isn't released here in the US just yet, at time of recording in January, we have seen some stuff that we can extrapolate from some charging sessions in Germany, and also the ID.3 Pro, which is the larger battery pack of the ID.3. That's a 77 kilowatt hour pack. The ID.4 Pro will be an 82 kilowatt hour pack. So they're close enough, and the charging curves seem to match up, that we can kind of extrapolate what Volkswagen is going to do with the ID.4. So if we look at the Ford Mustang Mach-E, what we've seen so far, as a secondary point to his video testing plug and charge technology, which worked first time and was great to see, Tom Moloughney did a session from about, I think it was 45-46% all the way up to about 80%. So again, it's one session. We can't take everything from this, and it could be tweaked with over-the-air updates. They may change in what the final cars are delivered, may have a very different charge curve. But if it does hold, what we saw was that the car, under 50% state of charge, jumped very quickly up to 150 kilowatts, which is fantastic, but it quickly tapered away. Now, to be fair, it did hold around, a good 100 plus kilowatts. So it's not like it's falling off a cliff. It is tapering away gradually, and you still have, triple digits charging power, but it is not that 150 kilowatts for any time in the upper half of the battery from what we can see so far. So if that's the case, then you'll very much want to be in that first half of the pack. It will be more efficient to turn up in a Ford Mustang Mach-E around 5-10%, and get as much of that 150 kilowatt max as you can. Now, that's true with a lot of cars, that it applies even in the Bolt EV, but certainly to Teslas, which have the maximum of 250 kilowatts just for a short period of time and then die away. You'll see a lot of people referring to charger hopping. That's trying to keep on, hitting every charger along the way to get that maximum power in the under 50 to 60% state of charge bracket. And then, you're leaving at 50 to 60%, optimizing the power that you can get from that car, because that's how the charge profile dictates that you drive. If you're getting 130 kilowatts to 70%, that's going to be around a 10 to 70% charge time of around 25 minutes and 52 kilowatt hours added. So you can see immediately that that's a good chunk of the pack. 52 kilowatt hours of an 87 kilowatt hour pack, that's going to get you a good 150 to 180 miles depending on the efficiency of the car. And it shows the benefit, even though 130 kilowatts in the Nissan Ariya is 20 kilowatts lower than the max of the Ford Mustang Mach-E. It shows, when we compare the two, why that could be actually faster to charge. And remember, all this could change. You may find that the software is tweaked in the Ford Mustangs Mach-E's that are actually delivered. So, we're taking this as more of a thought exercise at the moment, but it's interesting to think about, because you have very different dynamics on your trip then. Not particularly much lower than the Ariya is the Volkswagen ID.4. The Pro with the 82 kilowatt hour pack will charge up to 125 kilowatts, Volkswagen says. And we see some of the tests actually only managed to do a small charging test on the ID.4, but it did jump right up to 126 kilowatts. So based on those ID.3 Pro charge sessions from Battery Life channel, we've seen him go from 5 to 80% in 38 minutes, which is around 61, 62 kilowatt hours. The point there is that the way we see the ID.4 likely to charge is to hit up to that 125 kilowatt region in its first third of the battery, seem to start tapering away around 35-36%, but not aggressively. What struck me about the ID.4 was that it holds a very slow taper by what we've seen, so you can still get a lot of energy into the pack even if you are starting your charge higher up at that 40 to 50%. Not as good as something like the Ariya would be if that 130 kilowatts max to 70% is true, but certainly something that will be, make it a little bit easier for people again to judge the charging session. It's not going to suddenly aggressively taper away. So over to you, really. Which vehicles' charging profile, if these do hold out to be the true profiles, which of them is most sensible for your type of travel? Would you prefer something that is just reliably quick all the way up to 70%? Who knows what happens after that with the Ariya, but if you can get your maximum fast charge rate at any point in that first 2/3 of the battery, you'll be happy, because you don't really have to think about the dynamics of the charging curve so much. Or would you prefer something like the Mach-E, which is that extreme of, potentially the extreme of just charging as fast as you can to 50-60% and then being on your way to the next charger? Do you prefer to hit that maximum power, get it out of the way, and then drive again as quickly as you can? Shorter stops, but more of them. Or would you prefer to have a reliably steady charge like the Ariya, also kind of like the ID.4 in some senses, where you can go up to a higher state of charge and not worry about it too much? and then move on, do a bit more of a bigger stint of driving in between charge stops? Should we be measuring these things in miles, in percentage to percentage, and then some time, how long it takes to get that? Or is the maximum charge rate something that is useful to discuss the capabilities and compare the capabilities of a car's fast charging? All good questions, I hope, and always want to hear your thoughts in the comments, so please let us know down there which you'd prefer, which suits your travel style best, and hopefully we'll have another good discussion. Thanks for watching as always, and enjoy your coffee. Cheers.